Hey everybody, welcome to another Valley Forge, a brand new video channel just about lasers. So like and subscribe and all that stuff, and let's talk about before you buy, what are the things to think about? When I first sat down to talk about this subject, I didn't realize just how much thought goes into buying a laser. And you know, it's easy for somebody to just say, oh, well, how much money you got? And then just buy the best one you can. That's not entirely the case. And so we're going to focus mainly today on lasers that cost, say, $200 to $10,000. And I think that's kind of the spot for most people getting into it. There are just some things you can't do with a $200 or $300 laser. You might actually have to spend, $8,000 just for you to get started if you're very specific. But for the majority of people, they're just getting into lasers, or they're getting ready to upgrade to their second one, and they just want to, what are the things I should be thinking about? And I've worked on lasers anywhere from 5.5 watts all the way up to 150 watts, the real nice industrial machines as well. So I have a kind of a good breadth of understanding of which ones do what. And the diode lasers are kind of new on the scene. They kind of snuck up on everybody. And in some cases, they are a better way to go than spending a lot more money on a CO2 laser. So I'm going to start out with the first thing before you buy Lightburn. The Lightburn software, let's bring that up real quick. This is kind of your go-to program, maybe your Adobe Illustrator, if you will, for doing lasers. And the majority of the people out there are going to want to have to learn this software. It does cost money. So this is something to think about. But I can tell you, if you put in the time and learn this software, so many more things will open up for you, in my opinion. And it's just really the way to go. And especially when you're learning from other people and you want to be able to do just about everything. And even for a laser that's, say, $270, and this is kind of where I'm going to start out, it is unreal to me that already the prices are coming down. This is a 10-watt laser for under $300. Sure, I say the very first one, maybe you could start with a 5.5 watt, but when a price is this low for a 10-watt laser, I would just say, here's your entry level right here. You don't pay taxes when you buy directly through Ortur. You can sign up for their little rewards thingy or whatever. And $270 for this is the same laser module I have on mine that I paid, $700 for mine. I have the Laser Master 3. This is the Laser 2. And I think the module itself costs $270. So I think this is a heck of a deal and a good way to start. But of course, there are things you're going to add for that. I mean, you're going to probably want a honeycomb bed, right? So, looking at another $80. Then you've got the software. Maybe you've got another $40, $50. Luckily, it's a one-time pay thing for the Lightburn. So you get it and you're done. And that may change at some point. So may as well get in and get the whole thing forever. Something to look into maybe before you say you're looking at $270 and you're like, you know what? I'm just not ready to do that with the honeycomb bed and the Lightburn and the everything else. And I have nowhere to put it and I can't do the exhaust. Maybe there's a makerspace locally and just look for that. And many times you can pay a monthly fee. You can meet people, you can learn, you can take classes on how to use a laser. And this is how I got into it. And I was able to use a very expensive machine for a low cost of money. I didn't have to worry about all the accessories. I got a chance to learn and see what I wanted to make. I could also use the woodworking shop that was part of it to cut my wood, and there was scrap wood that I could grab and use. So how much money did I save by learning all of that? But not everybody has a makerspace near them, and they kind of just want to do it at their house or whatever. And you never know. We may have another incident where people can't leave. And here you go. You would have a laser that you can practice on and do things inside for less than $300. And literally, you don't need the honeycomb bed to get started. And literally, you don't need the light burn to get started. But these are just things to think about. There's going to be so much, believe me. We're going through a lot here today. So some of the things you should think about. Customer service. All right, I brought up Ortur because, my first diode laser was actually a Jinmitsu LC40, which is a great laser. And I was very happy with it. But it's limited in the amount of accessories and different things that you can get for it. Whereas if you went with something like an Ortur, they're going to be there. I'm not affiliated with Ortur, by the way. It just happens to be the one that I bought, which was my third machine. So my third diode. This is a company that you will be able to get a hold of. There are a lot of accessories that you can buy, extension kits and engraving platforms and rotaries. And it's just something to think about when you buy a laser, no matter what price. Are you going to be able to get parts for it? Is there somebody that you can actually talk to if you have trouble? I think probably, like the X Tool or Atom Stack or Ofero, which is Ortur, you're going to have some sort of service. I had a problem with the motherboard with my Laser Master 3. They they literally sent it out. It was here in 3 days from China. So I was very, impressed with that. But in contrast, for a $270 laser, you can go up to a 150 watt laser with the bed size of 50 by 70. This was on sale for $8,500. So, under $10,000, you can have a machine that you can do just about anything you want to do. And you can put a half sheet of plywood in this thing and go to town and make signs and do everything. It has a water chiller built in, which is, the thing that you would have to buy extra. We'll get into it a little bit. But this is kind of, when you're talking about $10,000, this is kind of your higher end. This is actually a machine that I plan on buying when I have more space, because you think about just the size of this thing and what it's going to take to work it. But we'll get into the higher end machines in a bit, but I just wanted to give you a contrast between the two, low end and high end. And the next thing I wanted to bring up is what medium, what material. I mean, if you're going to be cutting 1/2-inch plywood and larger sheets, this is probably going to be more your way to go. But if you're cutting coasters and keychains, this might be your way to go. But then you're thinking, but I want to do acrylic keychains and I want to do see-through acrylic keychains. Well, then you're probably better with a CO2 laser. So I just did a video, in fact, CO2 versus diode. So on a lot of these subjects that we're going to talk about today, I've already done videos on them. So you can look through those if any one subject hits you. But this is a good one for you to kind of get all the questions out. And then you can go more specific into the things that pique your interest. And what I was saying in the CO2 versus diode is when you want to do acrylic, you really, really can't do it in a diode laser. You can cut black and maybe a few other colors, mostly solid. But if you're getting a diode laser to do acrylic, you're probably aiming up the wrong tree. But the downside is that when you get a CO2 laser, the bed size that you get for the price is pretty small. So that's kind of your trade-off. You see, if you go with something like the Ortur here or a Laser Master 3, like I got the extension. Well, now I can work on pretty big things for under $1,000. Well, you want to get that same machine with the size bed that I have, you're probably looking at least $4,000 or $5,000 and a huge machine. So you can see there are trade-offs of what you can do with a diode laser about what size it's going to be with a CO2 laser. Because literally with a CO2 laser, you can do way more things. But yeah, it comes with trade-offs. So if you say you want to do acrylic, your start off is probably going to be this K40, so about $550. roughly the same price as a good diode laser. The difference, as I had just mentioned, your bed size is going to be so much smaller. We're talking about 8 by 12 inches. So this is going to be more for cutting small things. You could do coasters, keychains all day long. It is going to cut better than your diode laser. I mean, it's talking about 40 watts versus 10 watts or maybe even 20. But it's not just the wattage. A CO2 laser just cuts better than the diode laser. But there are other things to think about when it comes to dealing with a CO2 laser. Now you've got to chill the water, and the reason you do this is because this actually has a laser tube in the back. Unlike a diode laser, that everything is contained here in the cartridge. With a CO2 laser, you actually have a laser tube in the back that has to stay cool. So you have to chill it. And you can see right here, they have this CW3000 water chiller that you can get as a combination with the CO2 laser. Now, even over here for $530, it does come with a little water pump that you can submerge below in a plastic bucket or something, and it will do fine. But in the long ways, you're probably going to want something a little bit more solid and robust for that, and it's going to make your laser tube last longer, so you'd probably want to get a water chiller. Now, some of you will know this is not a true water chiller. It doesn't have any sort of refrigerant in it. This is just basically a radiator, but it is better than using a bucket. One of the nice things about what this is a 40-watt laser, which is commonly called the K40, which is from OhmTech, but this is Monport. Something to know about these inexpensive 40-watt lasers. They usually don't support Lightburn, which is that software that I was talking about. This one so happens to support Lightburn. So now you've got kind of the lowest point in your CO2 lasers. You're supporting Lightburn. You're pretty much good to go. You've got great support. Now there's Facebook groups that are like all things K40. There's Reddit. There's all kinds of places where people just modify these kinds of lasers. So you will have some help. Now that may not be true for some of the other diode lasers. They're much newer on the market, and there's so many different models that you really don't have the support that you do with this 40-watt CO2. But again, you're looking at 8 by 12 bed size. There are also lots of different little things you can buy, say on Amazon, to upgrade your 40-watt laser, which is kind of nice. And then maybe you can upgrade the bed size a little bit, but it really isn't going to be too much. So that brings me to the next thing to think about is, where are you going to put this? I mean, let's just take these 3 lasers as an example. Between this laser, and this laser, where you're going to put this is going to be a big difference, right? This is not going to be fitting inside your house. It's going to definitely be in a garage or a shop or something dedicated for things like this. This actually can be put in a bedroom, and you can get something like an air purifier, a fume extractor to bring out the fumes, because that's going to be very important to think about. Where are the fumes going to go for your laser? And as you can see, the 40-watt CO2 laser is enclosed here with a vent out the back, so all you got to do is stick a hose on there and vent it to the outside. Well, let's take a look at this diode laser. Where are the fumes going to go for that? Well, now you've got a $600 laser, say, or a $300 laser. Now you've got to enclose that so that you can get the fumes outside. Or are you going to have this outside all the time? So this is where you really got to start thinking about safety. Are you going to have to pay more dollars? Here's $160 for their enclosure. But to even think past that. Well, you get this enclosure, but I want to get the extension, kind of like what I have. Well, if you get the extension, it's not going to fit in the enclosure. So are you going to be happy with a 400 by 400 millimeter surface that's about, say 17 inches by 17 inches? Is that going to be big enough for you? If it is, get the enclosure and then you can put it wherever you want. Or, as I've showed you what I did, I put my lasers out on the patio and I just have cords running inside and I work right through the sliding glass door. That works perfect for me and I'm super happy with it. It keeps all my fumes outside. I don't even need fume extraction, and trying to figure out an enclosure isn't a big deal for me. But that is something I want everybody else to think about. And I also mentioned the honeycomb bed, which makes it much better at not leaving laser marks on your project. But this is another expense. They're about $50 to $80 for one for a 400 by 400 millimeter, or one like mine, it's at least $130 to $200 if you have the extension. Something else to think about. And who is your customer? What are you making? Are you making this for a business? Are you making this for a hobby? Are you making this, just so you can make gifts for people? Think about what you're making. How many of them need to be made in a certain amount of time? If you're in a hurry and you have to make a lot of things, a diode laser is probably not going to work for you. They are pretty slow. If you look at this thing, even on their advertising, this probably took hours. And when you do cuts, say you want to cut out a 1/4 inch piece of plywood, you're probably going to have to do 3 or 4 passes. So 3 or 4 passes around this entire thing at a reasonably slow rate just to cut it out. So, it is a slow process, but the engraving is very good. It looks very nice. And that's one thing diode lasers do quite well, is beautiful engraves. So if you're just selling a few products here and there at a farmer's market every weekend, you probably could get away with using at least a 10-watt diode laser. But if you really want to start a business, you're probably going to need a CO2 laser that if you want to do this full time, so you're looking at probably at least $3,000 or $4,000. And when you start looking at that price, I would suggest looking at Monport or OhmTech. They're both a good, reasonable amount of money. Kind of like I said, in that mid-range. They do have them all the way from, what I would say is I would start with the 60 watt here. So you're looking at all the way from $3,000 up. Now, remember, you're going to have to get a chiller. You're going to have to get light burn. There are other things you're going to need, air assist, with these lasers. So if you see something that's $3,000, you can figure you got really about $3,500, $4,000 all in. But you could run a business on a machine like this. And when you're looking, as I mentioned in my video before, you're not necessarily just looking for the wattage, because the wattage you can up the wattage for these machines. They have a spot here on this spot here, right on the side, this upper right-hand corner. Those bolts come out, and you can extend the laser size. So you could turn this 60 watt laser into a 150 watt laser. You may have to upgrade a few parts, but it certainly can be done. What you can't upgrade is this bed size. So if you know that you're going to work with things that are 3 feet by 3 feet, well, this is just not going to work with this laser. So when you're looking at which laser to buy, you're talking about your larger CO2 lasers, I think the most important part is bed size. And I would advise getting the largest bed size you can for the money. Because again, you can change the laser tube, but you cannot change the bed size. So look for the things you can change and the things you can't change. As far as safety goes, for all of the lasers, I would recommend a fire blanket as being your first line of defense. Sure, you should have a fire extinguisher if things get out of hand, but I would say a fire blanket is far more useful. You could throw it over the fire. They're many times very small, and then you're not destroying everything. And of course, laser goggles. Now, I've mentioned many times the pair of goggles I'm wearing actually came with the Ortur Laser Master 3. These are so ridiculously comfortable, and they cover the entire eye. You don't even know they're on. There are some goggles, like this particular pair here, you could buy on Amazon for like $7. Very uncomfortable, very hard to see. I actually gave them away. Now, as I showed you before, I just put a piece of acrylic between my window and my machine, and I use that as my protection, and it works out very nicely. Air assist is very important when it comes to lasers, and I've made several videos about air assist, and I'm going to be making a ton more. I want to have a definitive video on laser assist, on all the different ways that you can do it, and what works and what doesn't work, what helps with cuts, what helps with engraving, everything. So I'll tell you, air assist when it comes to lasers is much, much more important than you might think. And as I mentioned before, who is your customer? Are you going to start a website? If you're going to start a website, you know, that is quite an expense. You're going to have the camera. You're going to have a way to take the pictures that are nice. You're going to have to pay for the website. A lot of times that's $30 a month. You're going to need packaging. You're going to need a way to do all of that. Maybe you're not used to doing it. There's a lot more to selling online than you might think. I would highly suggest starting out with local markets, farmers markets, makers markets, things in your area, your church, whatever. Maybe even start your own. But it is nice to get out there and meet the people and talk to people. You start getting custom orders for things, and which comes with its own set of issues. But it is good. It will teach you how to use your machine better. And knowing what you're going to do will help you decide what machine you want. So I know I haven't answered everything, and I just kind of blew all this out there onto the web. It's not in necessarily any cohesive order, but I did cover pretty much everything about the things that you should think about before you buy. And that's kind of what I was getting at. If there's something else that I'm missing here, which I'm sure there is, please leave a comment. I'd be happy to answer it. This channel is growing very quickly, and I'm very happy about it, and I appreciate everybody's comments. So I will see you in the next one.
Great. If you see me, give me a wave. I love to see style. I also enjoy a good laugh.